Hi, everybody. My name is Michelle Tennant Nicholson. I am the co-founder of Wasabi Publicity, the co-founder of PitchRate.com, and the co-writer of this book, The 21-Day PR Action Guide. And if you are joining us in today's call, you're probably doing this workbook. And this is our coaching calls to help people who are do-it-yourself PR people. And you want to learn a little more about PR. So if you want to learn a little more about PR and you like challenges of any kind, this is your call. So stay tuned. Now, what are we talking about today? So today we are at the last part of the challenge for August. Can you believe it? It's actually August 28th, 2020. And so what we're going to do in today's call is talk about the art of storytelling, but in particular, how to leverage the good storytelling placements you've gotten. And we've got great results to actually share with everybody. So yeah, just include it. So if things are going off and there are dogs barking and kids screaming, it's a very casual call. You didn't pay for this call, so just chill. It is Friday, it's almost the weekend, and we just want to have a chillax time together, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of a lesson, and then we'll break into groups where you can then actually workshop what you're doing. If you don't have this book, Hannah's going to put into the chat room pitchrate.com where you can download it for free during the pandemic. This is our giveaway. Drew and I really have always believed heavily since we started in 2002 to give your brilliance away, that the universe just gives back. You get what you give. And so this is our giveaway, right? So bully for you, take advantage of it. So, and then if you feel like you need more help and you need to actually have our team working for you, then great, we can talk about that too. But we have other publicists on the call. We have other marketing professionals, authors. It's sort of like, if you just want to talk marketing, it's just a place to huddle during the pandemic since, let's face it, it's a challenge right now. I don't care how positive and happy you are. I lead a pretty happy life and mountain bike and kayak. It's still hard, okay? But let's not go there. Let's go to what you're plugging. So in the chat room right now, everybody just practice your plugs. I want to see URLs. That's, in other words, a website. If you're like, what did she just say? That's your website. You need to stop me if I'm talking to our millennial crowd and I'm letting off the greatest generation and our baby boomers. They hate it when I use, I'm a Gen Xer, so my language is sometimes appropriate for other generations. And if you're like, what did she just say? That I don't have to always talk like I'm an online marketer, okay? In other words. So put right now inside your chat everything that you want to plug, who you are. Don't forget what we do by the end of the call is there's a little 3 dots, your ellipses in the bottom right-hand corner. And I think if you right-click it, or I'm not sure if is it a right-click or a left-click? Let's check and see. Left-click. And then you save chat to your hard drive. And then Hannah does that for me. And then I actually read what you put in there for our blog. And so if a lot of people are like, I didn't catch the call, or I can't make the call, and when are you doing it next, and all of that stuff. So let me just go over that for you. So I'm going to share the screen. Oh, I don't think I can. So then we'll just have Hannah give you the links. Hannah, will you put in the YouTube link? It's the Wasabi Publicity YouTube link where Hannah puts all the calls. So if you miss a call and you don't get your email and you're like, where is it? You can always capture the past calls or future calls at the Wasabi Publicity YouTube channel. There's also another place, pitchrate.com, pitchrate.com that she put in. Go ahead and put that in there as well. It's at the top. That one also gets you media leads. So it's a great place to actually practice pitching actual press. So we're going to talk about leveraging PR. We're going to break immediately into groups, and you're going to talk about a placement that you've gotten recently. And I'd love to see that also in the chat. And if you don't have a placement to brag about yet, then something in the past, something recent, whatever. And if you don't have something that you can brag about, then I want you to pick a journalist an article that you love and you would like for that journalist to write about you. So you're either talking about something that you can leverage, or you're talking about somebody that you want to pitch. Okay. Okay, so Bo has this to talk about. So let me see if yeah, there it is. So in the chat, I just shared with you what Bo is dealing with as far as like, well, how do you leverage this CNN placement? Great placement, just came out on Wednesday, August 26th. It is sometimes difficult to pinpoint where the press actually hear about you. And when you're out doing your paid media, your owned media, and your earned media outreach, it feels like they sometimes just trip over you, but I believe that they're actually just, they're tripping over what you're putting out there in the ethers. Mm-hmm. And if you just went, what did she say? Paid media is everything that you pay for. Today it looks like Facebook ads, iHeartMedia ads, traditional newspaper or magazine ads, owned media, your website, your intellectual property, the things that you own, your social media accounts. These are things that you own. With paid and owned media, you have 100% control of the message that is out there, that's pushed out into the world. With earned media, you don't have control. You have very little control, and the only control you have is in your media materials, like your press kit, your alerts, your pitches, your press releases, or what comes out of your spokesperson's mouth. In this case, that was Aaron, the CEO of Bunch Bikes. So there's a few things here to note about this particular placement. Was Aaron disappointed about not having links? That's why I always hear that from clients, like, how come they're not linking back to Bunch Bikes?
Well, he disappointed, yes. He was like, there's no backlink, but yeah.
They are not allowed to.
I figured.
So the editor, and that's where a lot of people get confused between paid, owned, and earned. Mm-hmm. And get to a high level placement like this, they're not allowed to. They actually follow editorial guidelines from the federal communications. There's laws to differentiate advertising from paid media. And I know that, I've been doing PR for 31 years. I remember when it was really distasteful to ever mix, advertorials were kind of shunned. Today it's not as much as it was, right? We're in the height of fake news. It's like the Wild West on the internet still. And I am shocked at what press venues do to collapse everything. So it's even more important to ask who's your source and what's the bias inherent in this news piece coming at me as a citizen. How it fluctuates or shows itself in articles like this is that you're not going to get clear backlinks. It's not a podcast where you're sharing an affiliate profit sharing, right? Where they would be motivated to give you traffic, for example. And so that's sometimes I have to educate clients about that. And that's just the way it is. But nevertheless, we've got this amazing placement. So what do we do? So you all have a segment or something that you're wanting to leverage. The first place, let's take a look at how you leverage it in paid and owned. Mm-hmm. So what are some places that you could take where Bo could actually take this and leverage it through his owned assets?
Right on his website.
Website, featured on the website? Where
Absolutely.
else? Mm-hmm. Where else?
As featured in CNN in any kind of press release that you send out to anybody else.
Could, yep.
Can you bring those of us who weren't in this group up to date as to what?
We are talking about leveraging media placements. So we're on the third week of the PR 21-day PR action guide.
No, I understand the general thing, but with Bo, what's in relation to
leveraging PR placements. So
look in the comments. There's a CNN link there, Nita.
Oh, got it. Okay, thank you.
Yep. Yeah. So she was asking where the link is. Sure, CNN here. Oh, thanks, Hannah. I can share. So I can also share this. Okay. So this is the placement. Here's what I love. The Swiss Army knife of bikes, how cargo bikes went from novelty to practicality. I think that you could leverage this also inside new messaging. So you could, CNN calls, now it's like the credentialing of this, the Swiss Army knife, that's kind of, if you all like that, that's where those type of terms get coined in PR campaigns. You can suggest that always to the press, and sometimes they come up with on it their own. I am curious, Bo, is that anywhere in your messaging? Did you put the Swiss Army knife of bikes somewhere? Or
No, I believe that's a dude named something Star who has I forget what he does, but I think it's the very last quote of the article is where he got that one. So Aaron starts the article, which is pretty cool that Aaron starts the article and then it ends on the Swiss Army knife quote, I think.
Oh, yeah. So you could actually play with that now all over the place. Meet, try, that's a way to, that's clickbait worthy. So I think that it's also important to kind of, when we originally spoke about your campaign a couple of weeks ago, to really focus on inside earned editorial is going to be all about bike safety. How do you choose a bike? What's appropriate for you and your family? And then just having your spokesperson just give bike 101 educational stuff. You can talk for days and days and days about that. And then meanwhile, anywhere the title comes from your CEO, he's going to be the CEO of Bunch Bike, and then that's the inherent PR plug that people start to then. But Aaron is just always out there talking about bike safety, bike choice, bike know-how, bikes in the pandemic, what you should know about bike paths, what you should know about bike in the city, bike in the forest, like all things bikes. And then his title will always be the instant plug. I love, for you, I think doing a Facebook ad campaign around this. Look, even CNN called this a Swiss Army knife of bikes. So you want to check it out? Here's how you check it out. Here's your coupon. Here's your code, or whatever call to action you want to put inside that paid media campaign. As far as your owned assets, I think it's just fun to just have, to have fun with what came out in this. There's an old, some of you all know the Publicity Hound, right? You came to,
I was just going to say, Joan Stewart has a whole piece on a tips list. And yes, I just got her to send that to me, and it's like an 11-page. Here's how you create tip lists, and I've just been working through that.
Well, also, so it's funny because Joan and I talked about this. This was in 2001. This happened, but it's funny how this is still relevant. Okay, this is an old piece that she and I did. I had I was on the front page of the Wall Street Journal with the client, how to fight and stay friends. And then I actually have all these pieces here on how to leverage. So still appropriate. The thing that people won't think about is how to do a YouTube video, discussing how it came about. Or you could do a teleseminar with Aaron about choosing a bike for your family and the top 3 things that you need to choose a bike. They may or may not choose a Bunch Bike. Here's that, if you want that placement, that's the Publicity Hound 15. Let me see what I wrote back then that, how to score. Oh, you could talk about what Aaron was quoted and have him do a Facebook Live. Let's see what Aaron was saying, what Aaron said. Oh, I love the discovery piece of how Aaron, I love this as an entrepreneurial piece, maybe for business venues. You're traveling, you see a great idea, and then you bring it back to your country. That's a great business piece for Fast Company, Entrepreneur, Inc. So how to spot a future trend and then bring it to fruition. Here are 3 tips from Aaron Powell, who brought Bunch Bikes to the United States. And then and then you can leverage the CNN placement, like, you know, he was quoted by CNN, blah, 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 blah. And then you'll have a certain, like what we talked about in my blog about before it disappears, is that a lot of people aren't thinking through that it's going to disappear. So this CNN business, I've been quoted by them before, Bo, you're going to have at least a year or two, and then it disappears. So you want to make sure that you save this on your hard drive. So whether it's a TV clip, a radio clip, an article, you want to get the content and think through like, okay, one day this is going to be off the internet because they're going to delete it. I'm going to show you an example because I promised I would say, let's talk about things that disappear. I have a placement in More Magazine, I think from, I can't remember the year. So if you go to my my personal YouTube, let's see if I can't get it to go. There it is. Whoop. There. Well, I also have it up here. Let's see. So this one, I have it over here. So this graphic that I used for my profile was also from 2011 when I was mentioned in More Magazine. So I was smart enough to capture this for myself. This just deleted off of more.com this year. Up to that point, I would use this link, and you want to give, it's their content. You want to make sure that you're helping the venue by directing it to the article on their website. You don't want to actually steal traffic from them, right? It's their content. You want to push traffic there. But one day, they're not going to care about it anymore, but you still care about it because it's about you. So in that case, I now just have this, instead of it being online, I have this, it's what they call a tear sheet. So it's like one page of the whole article. And I can't tell you how many clients come to us and they've had really great placements in the past. And they're like, can you get us that off of Fox TV? We were like everywhere. No, I can't. Not unless you saved it on your hard drive. Questions about that? People have questions about that because that seems to confuse people. Yeah, Nita?
So are you doing a screen capture of that article?
You can.
On your computer, or how else are you getting the
This is a scan. I bought the magazine, I scanned the page in. That's what this is. That's going to be your, you want the highest resolution possible. So if it's a print with, a nice graphic like that, you want to get a nice clean version of that.
Okay. Yeah, because I've noticed the newspaper articles that we've had there's the print version and then there's the digital version.
Correct. So here's the thing that's interesting is like my clients will say, I was in Rolling Stone, but I didn't see it right away. We don't do clippings. That's a separate offering. So I say, well, it's in the magazine, and unless you have a clipping account with some place like Cision or someplace where they're physically reading, back in the day, they had loads and loads of people really reading for your search terms. Can you imagine? That actually was the way it was done. And so what it looks like today is just the same type of thing that Google Alerts does, but you can augment it with stuff that's not on the internet yet. So if you think about Rolling Stone, so Rolling Stone's going to be a magazine that you can purchase, and they're going to want that money from the newsstands, and they're not going to put that magazine on their website until they've exhausted the sales of that print, that hard copy version. Now, because of the pandemic, it's accelerating the loss of these hard copy versions, but the magazine still exists. But you've seen trends like Oprah Magazine. They're really looking at, like, they're not going to do the hard copy anymore. They're just going to do the digital, and that became accelerated in the pandemic. But that's why people get crazy. They're like, I'm in USA Today, but I don't see it on the internet. Well, you won't until they've exhausted the income that they can get through the hard copy sales.
So who did you recommend using to track hard copy?
Cision is the best. It's so expensive.
So
my recommendation is you're going to know by doing your own PR, you're going to know that you've been interviewed and fact checked.
Michelle,
Right. Yes.
are you differentiating between newspapers and magazines? Because I find the opposite is true. I find every time I get an article in like a newspaper, like the one I just sent you,
It is different.
the
You have to
electronic version of the newspaper makes it look like you're a headline performer.
It depends on the venue. Every venue has a different model of revenue. So you got to look at the actual venue itself. So there's some magazines like PTO Today magazine. It looks like a regular magazine that you would purchase, but they actually give their magazine away to schools.
Right.
Their revenue only comes from advertising. You can't even purchase the magazine because they give it away. So they have an automatic distribution to
Right.
schools. So you have to ask, like, how is that venue actually making their revenue? And you can ask them if you don't know. And then you've got the same added issue with live radio. So we had a live radio in Boston for a client last month. And what I normally do is I check for podcasting. So she podcasts. You can even see where she podcasts. And it was even recent dates. So we're here in August, and I emailed her and I said, I'm looking to see Joss's interview. Did it come up yet? And she goes, I'm not podcasting anymore. Oh, well, you literally told me in the email, check out the podcast for the shows. And now she won't get us a copy of the show. I find that 60% of press will tell you they'll send you a file of the show, and they don't keep their word on that through the years of doing this. So a lot of times the clients will go, we'll just get it free from the host or the producer. Okay, good luck with that. You may or may not get it. Sometimes you do. You may or may not get it.
We just did an interview this week, and he told us it'll be available on his site September 8th, which is several days before it actually goes live.
Perfect. Well, so then you can actually, I would still, once it goes live, I would still figure out a way to save a copy for your own use if he ever deletes it off of his site.
He told us we could take it off his site a few days before it actually goes live.
And if you're ever unsure, talk to the venue. Wall Street Journal used to charge people $5,000 for the use of reprinting their articles in fundraising. These were charities they were charging that to. So you just want to honor copyright laws and make sure that you are okay with what the venue wants you to do. And that one, by the way, in Boston, that radio show, I'm so sore about it, like just kind of irritated by it, that I'm like, I'm probably not going to book with her anymore. Give me the file. But it's up to you in that relationship with that press person too, right? Mm-hmm. She's not that big anyway. My client would have had international reach for her if she got me a copy of that, but she didn't see the value of that. So that's another way that you can kind of look at clips like, look, this is what we're going to do. It's going to be mutually beneficial for both of us if you get me that clip. And there are clipping services that independent third-party clipping services that you can get TV up to 7 days after you're on TV, or radio, you can always hire them 24 hours in advance and get them to do, like if it's a Sirius XM, you got to hire that in advance. You're not going to be able to get that podcasted later. Okay.
There's a company called In the News that will get you
there's tons
like a headline version of your article, so that it looks as though it was splashed all over the news.
Yeah, so
they'll even get you a plaque of the article that you can hang up on your wall.
A lot of people want, once you start to get mentioned in the news, a lot of people want a piece of your pie too. Okay, so we talked by the way, if you were like, how do I find like what we're talking about at the Wasabi Publicity blog? Remember, I have what we're talking about that week. So if you're ever unsure about what we're going to be talking about in these calls, you can go to the blog and you'll see what we're going to be talking about in the upcoming calls. Our next calls are going to be September. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back the 11th, the 18th, and the 25th for a brand new 21-day PR Action Guide Challenge. So even those of you who have done one, then you want to just create something different for the fall, okay? But let's go ahead and fulfill upon what you all wanted to talk about here in today's call. So social media sharing, I really like to copy tag the venue, especially if they're a large venue. And in fact, yesterday, this is my little tips for social media sharing. I want to show you what I did yesterday. So yesterday we had a client that was on ABC in Silicon Valley. It was the Bay Area. Let me see if I can just grab that piece for you. Here it is. So this was a great piece. I didn't, like ABC 7 News was okay, but I actually wanted to leverage the numbers behind ABC News. I actually tagged them instead because they have 14 million versus ABC News. ABC 7, I think, was there it is, Bay Area News, much smaller than that, 1.2 million. So it's a little hint that you can do is actually tag the mother organization versus the local organization. That's just a way to kind of get more eyes once you tag another organization. You can do that on all the social media apps. Then another thing I wanted to talk about was we talked about the common clip mistakes is that people just don't save it to their hard drives. And let it go public first, and then you can see it if you like it, and then go to the expense of actually getting it. Like there's places where you can actually purchase it. I think it's expensive, but another place, Critical Mention, Find My Clip. This is another place where you can get your clip probably after the fact. Sometimes when you're in these national spots, you'll get contacted by these people wanting you to purchase through them. Then we also talked about an influencer podcast. How do you get them to share? Well, this is what I typically do when I book something for a client is I'll say, listen, my client has international reach. They operate in 21 countries. So if we share each other's assets on a social media, then we're going to be mutually beneficial with each other. They love that. And then I usually say, do you want something like a guest post, a guest blog post, or a bylined article, or some kind of maybe 500 words for your newsletter? And then could I in there put a link to something we're promoting? So podcasters or influencers, they don't remember what I was saying about, marrying paid, owned, and earned. They already marry it all. And they're all about the dollar. So they're usually like, yeah, that sounds good. I want a piece of your pie to 21 countries. So let's just do a joint venture where we're sharing each other inside those newsletters. You just ask, and then you'll find out where they stand on that. Mm-hmm. Okay, some of them will say, that's fine, you pay me $5,000 and we'll do that. So just, you can ask, okay? And they usually will just take more of your tips to actually, they're like, yeah, write me a blog post and we'll get that done for you. The other piece of it is, did an article mention you, can you share the magazine or newspaper on social media? If it's, what happens today is like a large venue, like let's say USA Today, and we had a client that was in USA Today in the pet magazine. It was a CBD oil thing for pets. And they were mentioned, it was a really sweet mention about them. I'll see if I can't pull that up while we're talking. And they couldn't mention it right away though, because it was like 2 months before, because it was an annual publication by USA Today, and they couldn't actually, Hannah, what was the name of that client? Receptra, right? What was that? Let me see if I can't just pull that up. Receptra, USA Today. Oh yeah, let me see if I can't. It was it's super great. Okay, here it is. So, by the way, just FYI, they couldn't get me a vet, so I called my personal vet. I got my personal vet mentioned. So you'll see what they said here is, I'm sending this blank copy, right? This was May 31st. And then here's the link to the online edition, right? If you do not find on the newsstands, here you go, right? But then they also had a PDF so that they kind of like told us like the online edition versus everything else. And they have, sometimes they'll say you can share this page, but not everything else, so that they can actually get eyes on the issue. But this is how they'll send it to you so that you can share it amongst yourselves. This is the and you can just kind of see, let me see if I can't just get the placement. So you could actually screenshot this. This is those annual publications where like they always talk about dogs and cats. So the value of something like this is super, super great, because you're going to be on a shelf for the whole year. So there it is. This is them right here, right there. So it's gonna be kind of hard for you all to see right here, but this whole thing right here, right? Then you could also see the printed, if it were me, I would go get the printed copy as well. And then you would look and see like how they're sharing it. So if they're sharing it, you want to honor their copyrights and sending traffic to them. You can see here that, this is the 2020, $5.99. So you wouldn't want to share their content and then hurt their sales, but their sales went on newsstands. And if you were unsure, you would ask them, like, when can I actually share it? And you can tease it and then tell people to buy it on the newsstands. So there was our business partner, Drew Gerber, was on House Hunters International years ago. And so they gave us a little link, a preview link, just to share with family and friends to get the excitement about the show. But now that it's years later, like for many years, I didn't concern myself about the reruns. But now that we're in a pandemic and most of the shows are really like seeing a lot of like reruns with the pandemic, people are just watching Netflix and Prime. So I'm very careful to not share that preview link anymore. I shared the actual episode so that they can go back to a provider and get at House Hunters International that revenue. Does that make sense what we're talking about? Questions about all of that? And then we're going to move on. I talked too much. Clear? Okay, what about your placements? So we're going to, what I'd like to make sure is that you're telling the story of your placement, right? So it's not just that Bo has his CEO in CNN, but then we talked a little bit about, well, he could actually talk about how do these tips on how to bring a business once you see a great business idea overseas or something. So I want you to think about what are some other stories, other storylines that you could tell from these segments. And then for those of you who said, look, I don't have a placement to talk about, but I just want to actually pitch somebody, I want you to figure out a pitch to send to that person, and we'll talk about one of those when we come back. Okay, so let's break, and we're going to be talking about other storylines about your placement. We got a great example that we're going to cover all of it. So we're waiting for everybody to come back. Just a second. Okay.
We've all decided to give up, Michelle. That's it.
Don't give up. Don't give up.
That's what I said. That's what I told him.
Hey, speak for yourself.
Right, exactly.
I was kidding. I'm not giving up.
Well, I have my days. I have my days where I have to call somebody else on the team and say, that person was terrible or whatever.
Call me anytime, Michelle.
So we're going to actually use Nita's example, and I just want to put it into context, okay? So when we're talking about, I call myself the storyteller to the media on purpose. You're going to see lots of stuff in the last part of the workbook on storytelling. I want you to always be asking yourself, what story am I telling now? And what you're telling now is going to be different than what you said last month and what you told from last year. It's like a river. The river's always flowing, right? You always have a different story to share. And think about it in terms of your friendships. right? And then you haven't seen a friend in a while and you get together and you're like, well, what's been happening? And then you just share with them everything that's been happening. Same thing with the press. And the press will say, keep in touch. What that means is pitch them. And they want to know what you're working on so that they might be able to use you as a source.
Something that Mark and I were just talking about, Michelle, was that because I've written for the local newspaper for 20 years, I'm pretty highly attuned to you need a hook. Don't just say, here's my next book. Well, what's different? How does it relate to what's going on now? Newspapers need something that's different than it was before. It's not the same blue and gold banquet that comes up year after year after year. It's just not gonna sell. And so please don't pitch that to me, because I've got to get that to my editor, and my editor is just gonna say, are you kidding? And so I can blame the editor, but you know, there needs to be a hook. What's your hook?
Yeah, so it ties back to our very first day of why. So yours is why do the PR campaign. For the journalist, it's always why now? Why do I have to cover this now? What's the call to action for the public?
Yeah.
So this is why I love Nita's example. So let's talk about, let's first of all go to
So while you're looking for that, a good example of what we're talking about is somebody, I just wrote a book about school shootings. That's my latest book, Betrayal High, and it tells a story of a school shooting from several different perspectives. But one of them is bullying, and October turns out to be anti-bullying month.
Exactly.
So what you're doing is pitching yourself as an expert on bullying or anti-bullying, or writing on the topic of anti-bullying, rather than pitching this great book you wrote.
Right.
And I think that's part of the message here as well.
Yes, the point is that you want to get inside their world. They care very little about your product.
That's for sure.
They don't care. I know, and it's the hardest thing to tell people, like, nobody cares about your baby, but it is exactly like that, right? You're excited about your baby's photos. Nobody else really wants to see them. They're just being polite and looking at them. I'm sorry, but that's the truth. So this is Nita's, right? So this is her press kit. This is done with our press kit 247 technology that you're welcome. Hannah, just throw a link into our technology in case people need that. So then you can see here, she's got this is what we've already talked about in past, right? This is how to create, in the first part of every PR Action Guide challenge, we talk about putting your materials together. So Nita has this all put together. The thing that we talked about because we had, I had her, under media coverage, she has this video, this old video. It's a tight little video that's 3 minutes long. And it has all about the wildflower book, what the wildflowers say about climate change, and it has her and Rob, the two photographers, in an interview. There they are. Okay. So the thing that's great about this is that this is what's called tape. So, your evening, your ABC evening show, Good Morning America, CBS, the early shows on CBS and whatnot. They love to see this because they like to see you in action. The question is how do you leverage this? We did this, by the way, on a private channel because she didn't have yet permission for this, but she's now got permission that she's going to put on her own YouTube channel, which is also a way to leverage old placement. But here's what I want. This week, Nita asked me, and she's on the call. She said, how do we actually pitch this person at CNN, right? So she just is reading this. It came out, just some of America's wildest places are in our backyard, and she wants to make sure that Stacy knows about us. So it's really easy, you all. You can, here on CNN Travel, this is going to go to their owned assets. But if you just click on Stacy and do a Google search on Stacy, just like we learned how to do a Google thing on you, you're going to see how to reach her right here. Now you can connect with her on Twitter the way that you do with everybody else, or you can actually email her, contact her, go to her website, contact her that way. But then what do you send to her? She would love to have this video. It's only 3 minutes. And she would love to have a pitch that says, why now? For Nita, she's getting, as a couple, they're getting the Ansel Adam Award. Nita, will you tell us what's happening right now that's newsworthy about you?
On September 9th, we are receiving the Ansel Adams Award for Conservation Photographer from the Sierra Club.
Wow.
Thank
Wow.
you. It is a big deal when you look at who's gotten it over the last
It really is.
years.
That's
Wow.
her work. That's her work behind her there.
Yes.
Isn't that beautiful?
Wow.
Right? Yeah. Now, for certain, Stacy wants to have this information. She may or may not be able to use the award timing, but the award timing gives you a reason why now contact them, right? And so they're going to want to know, then you've got this old placement here as a leveraging point so they can kind of find out who you are. But the thing that's also important, why now in the pandemic, is, you know, we're talking about climate change and the weather today, fires, hurricanes, the pandemic, like all these things that are affecting
Asphalt.
asphalt, right? Exactly. If you don't know, I'm fighting an asphalt plant 1,100 feet from my farm. So these things are of interest, and then, but the key here, wildflowers tell us how it's going. Wildflowers are the key. Did you know that? So you've got, you know, there's this thing that she just wrote about in your backyard, and so just tell her how much you loved her article. Stacey, I loved your article. You know what? We're getting this award. Did you know that wildflowers are a big key point? I would love for you to keep me as a source and call me anytime you want. Here's my phone number. Call me day or night. So thank you so much. And she might actually call you. That's it. It's really easy, you guys. You can hire us and pay us a lot of money, but the point of these do-it-yourself calls is so that you can do it. Okay. So let's review what we talked about today, okay? So we talked about how to leverage your PR. We talked about the storylines, the storyline of why you're doing a PR, but also the storyline of why now the media person wants you and how to leverage all these placements. We also talked about what we're doing next month, and you want to evaluate what to do next month and what you did this month against your overall annual why. A lot of times people in this time of there's like mid-year and they go, oh my God, did I even get any placements that I wanted to get this year? And now's the time to really like evaluate how's it going and do you need to really change up what you're doing? I've got one campaign where I'm frustrated. And so I told them, I was like, y'all need to approve something so that we can get you what you want. I'm done, right? And they're like, well, what are we doing wrong? I'm like, you just have to say yes. Like that's what, you know, if you want, you've got to be in relationship with the press and letting them know that you're available. Okay, before we adjourn for the day, what questions are left?
Well, I got a question.
Yes, Bo.
So I'm gonna try to be brief. This is kind of not exactly what we're talking about, but it's a question I have about. So Aaron is he's our spokesperson.
Yes.
He's the founder. And one of the things I'm doing is obviously the PR. And the challenge I'm having right now is that he's getting ready to be on, he's preparing for like a national television appearance and also trying to finalize a really big deal. So he's really tough to sort of nail down some time with. So I was wondering, because I'm still coming up with like, who we're going to pitch, who's the best, and what are, I know kind of the areas that he can talk about, because we talk a lot, just not right now. And so I was just wondering, is something that I should do maybe, I'm trying to think how to do this so I can maximize time. Maybe like come up with ideas, be like, send him an email, just like, and be like, give me 3 tips on this, or give me, what should I do?
Okay. When we have really busy spokespeople, we say when you're in the car driving, or when you just have 5 minutes and you can just talk, they don't have to write, they don't have to do anything, then we just need meat on the bones. And we literally get them on the phone while they're driving, and we record them, and we just let them talk stream of consciousness for 5 minutes. And then our writers just take it, and you just have to keep asking, you know, what's the top 3? Narrow it down to 3. I was just doing that with Elizabeth. Elizabeth has an interview this weekend, right? The brain can't assimilate too much more. So narrow it down to 3 points, narrow it down to 3 words, narrow it down to 1 word. And then you can remind him that in an interview that you did on the phone with him, these were the 3 things that he said were most important. And the best thing to ask guys like Aaron is, when you have 20,000 people and you're speaking to 20,000 people, what are the 3 things you want them walking away with? And then they'll say, oh, I think it's important that they know that Bunch Bikes comes from, that you can do this with a bike and you can do that with a bike. And then that's it. There's a piece, and then they might, if they're not verbal people, then just send them questions to answer via email. Some CEOs are better that way. I don't know. You need to ask him if he's a phone guy or an email guy.
He's a talker. We have I've done some recording of conversations before, but I just wasn't exactly sure how to go about it. This week I did like a full like mock pitch. I just proceeded forward and just made up my own answers.
Oh, ask him this.
Yeah.
Pretend that you're on a plane with Anderson Cooper, and you're about to deplane. You only have 40 seconds. What would you want Anderson Cooper to know? And you only have 45 seconds, and then time him. And then he'll get like kind of flustered, like, oh, that's rough, hard. I don't know how I can say it in 45 seconds, but it forces them to say what is the most important.
That's so great. And he'll love that. Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome, everyone. Well, until September. Now remember, September 11th is easy to remember because it's a pivotal day for all of us in America. And it is a tie-in, is a huge news tie-in for people. So we're probably going to be talking about a little bit of that when we come back together, right? Like breaking and seasonal news that both positive and tough for what the news actually covers. So
by the time we meet again, I will be either lined up or should know the date for my article in the Boston Globe.
Woo!
So
share with us. That's so exciting, Marjorie.
Yeah,
so
it was a good interview
us.
On Monday. It was really good.
Yeah, share your successes. You guys can email me. Pretty easy to find, Michelle at wasabipublicity.com, or just whatever email you're getting back from your registration, and then the team will forward it to me. Let me know your successes, okay? Just like Bo did. Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Take care.